We need to build a wall, and it has to be built quickly.
Yeah, good morning. Hey, I almost forgot to turn the button on. Hey, good morning, guys. It's Joan Jones. I'm sitting in for Chris Hand once again today. Here is your Wednesday, the 17th of June. And we're looking at a really pretty day again today, a little hotter, however, and the potential of some storms tomorrow. So we'll keep on top of all that. We'll keep you informed as it goes on. This morning, naturally, we have Mason on the board, ready to take your calls and make things happen here on the morning show. Listen to me. On the Chris Hand Show. Good morning, Mason.
Good morning, Joan. How you doing?
I'm well. You?
Doing good.
Okay.
Doing good.
All right. I have to tell you how my morning started, and then you can tell me that yours started better. And then also we have Jay Harper in the newsroom, being me for another day today.
Being you.
Yes, being me. And you're doing a very good job of being me.
Okay. Should I freak out when I see a bug in the men's room now?
I think everybody should freak out.
All right. Okay.
You know, the picture. Okay, so are we displaying the picture of the cockroach? I can't tell if we are or not, but I went into the ladies' room first thing I got here today, and that's what I was met with, this giant cockroach who, you know, at first when you see it sort of out of the corner of your eye, you don't realize that it's dead, but it's giant. And so I screamed. And, you know, nobody came to my rescue. I just want to say that I'm okay for anybody who didn't hear me or did hear me and didn't come help me. But the cockroach turns out to have been dead. So
yes, the best kind of cockroach is
absolutely
a dead cockroach.
Yeah, and like Brian said, I mean, I guess we can take some comfort that whatever they're doing to kill bugs in the building is working.
You know, when I moved to South Carolina, they called those things palmetto bugs.
Yeah, I like that they named them that.
Yeah. No, that's a freaking roach. Don't try to soften it up by it's a palmetto bug. No, you can put a saddle on it. It's a roach.
Yeah, for sure. So I was looking at the super text line in 1090 said, and I have to say that this beats the cockroach. I was greeted by a giant spider and web in the passenger seat of my car when I was leaving home. That would freak me out. I probably wouldn't even get in the car for a couple of days until it's been fumigated. So sorry about that. So we have a lot going on in the news today. Once again, I feel like every day it's like this, but a couple of the topics that we're going to be talking about here are these data centers. And I'm not going back to the well and the same old thing about the data centers. What I am going to do is present you the other side of the argument that says that those of you who are in opposition to data centers, you are just a tool of China. Honestly. So I've got a guest and he's got good reason. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me, his reasoning. So I want him to present it to you. Also, we're going to go back to the well on the UFC White House event and the plot that was uncovered to mass murder people attending that event. We have Kathy Henners coming in. She's going to be talking about whether or not there's a connection, a nexus to overseas terrorism. And now we're not hearing that, of course, from the powers that be here in the U.S., but she sees some similarities. So she's going to present those to us as well. That's at 10:30 this morning. So we'll talk to Kathy Henners about that and a whole lot more because, man, the news is a shaking again today. One of the things that happened overnight was that we learned that a whole bunch of the Trump-picked nominees, the ones that he backed with endorsements, have won their nominations. So Mike Collins won in Georgia to the U.S. Senate GOP primary over Governor Brian Kemp's pick. Collins is now set to face Jon Ossoff in November. The Trump-backed candidates in Oklahoma and Alabama, they also won their nominations for Senate, to run for the Senate. There is one, however, that didn't make it. Rick Jackson won the GOP primary for Georgia governor. He defeated Burt Jones. Burt Jones is the one that President Trump wanted to win that. So I guess that's, 1 out of 4? Okay, he lost one. Also, I think that the war lines are being drawn in Washington, D.C., because President Trump is so angry that that John Thune won't attach the Save America Act to the renewal of FISA. He was on Brett Baer's show on Fox News last night. John Thune was speaking about it. Let me play that clip first, and then I'll tell you what's gone on since then, since this moment in time. And it appears that even all the way overseas, President Trump is in France. It appears that this has really ticked him off.
On conversations with him,
Yeah.
how does this go over? Because
Well, I mean-
the way he types it in his True Social post, it's pretty aggressive. He
Well-
thinks you should be doing more.
And he's passionate about it, and we are doing everything that we can, but it is a function of math. I mean, we are bound by arithmetic in the United States Senate. The votes currently aren't there. We will continue to put the Democrats on the record and insist on votes on this. But if you tried to attach it, for example, to FISA, it would tank FISA. And so, we will move, once we get Clayton done, we'll move to FISA, try to get the Democrat coalition back together so we can actually pass that and put it on the president's desk. But, and we will look for votes, additional opportunities to get votes on the SAVE Act.
What about
Yeah, so you can try it all you want to get it on to get FISA on the president's desk. Overnight, President Trump said on True Social, you can go ahead and send me FISA, and I'm not going to sign it unless you attach the Save America Act. So just to review, the Save America Act has, I think it's 5 points, but the two biggies are that you must be a citizen to register to vote, and you must have ID in order to cast a ballot. And honestly, it would save, we know that it's an 80-20 issue. I almost didn't do the math there. It's an 80-20 issue. Americans want to have safe and secure elections. So I don't know what the deal is and why he can't get it attached to anything or get it passed. Leader Thune should be a leader and be able to whip his majority into action. But President Trump must have been up all night watching because he was really mad about it. Senator Mike Lee does have an idea of how you can get the Save America Act passed, and he talked about it last night also on Fox News.
Forward for the Save America Act?
Yes, there is, Kaylee, and I respectfully but very strongly disagree with my colleague from South Dakota on that. In the first place, the Save America Act, as passed by the House of Representatives, does have a simple majority of support in the United States Senate. Now, we don't have 60 votes. We're about 10 votes shy of achieving cloture. There are other ways of breaking a filibuster that don't involve resort to cloture. You don't actually have to have 60 votes to pass a bill. You just have to have 60 votes to force cloture. But you can break a filibuster through other means. My preferred means, particularly for this bill, the House passed Save America Act, which I believe would work. We put the Save America Act on the floor today. Not the expanded version, the one that actually passed by the House, for which there is a simple majority support in the Senate. You put that on the floor today. If the majority leader were to announce, we're going to debate this until we pass it, we would get to the point of passage. You can't do this all the time because it would take a lot of time. This is how they passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. At the time that bill came over in March of that year from the House of Representatives, they were about 30 votes shy of cloture. We're only 10 votes short. But the majority leader at the time, Mike Mansfield from Montana, to his credit, said, you know what, we're 30 votes shy of cloture, but we're going to debate this bill until it passes. And you know what happened? That bill got more popular. Those who were obstructing it got less popular. They started negotiating the terms of their exit ramp. They negotiated changes to the text that made them feel better about it and helped them save face. It ended up passing.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it can be done. And John Thune is he's denying that it can be done. But Mike Lee just explained how it has been done for the Civil Rights Act. So President Trump is so mad about this that he went today and canceled the Senate hearing for the DNI pick, Jay Clayton. Here's what happened. Trump wanted Bill Pulte, if you remember, on an interim basis to lead as the director of national intelligence. And the Dems and some Republicans cried foul. They said, hey, this guy is a housing guy. He's not an intelligence guy. We don't want him. So President Trump went and nominated Jay Clayton to the permanent position. Bill Pulte, by the way, was going to be there on an interim basis. So he goes and Jay Clayton, by the way, is an attorney for the Southern District of New York. So he said, all right, let's have Jay Clayton and we'll pass him on a permanent basis and he'll take the position. But in the Truth Social post that the president put up overnight, the Dems broke their deal. So the Republicans agreed to get rid of Pulte in favor of Jay Clayton so that the Democrats would vote in favor of the FISA renewal. But the Dems are now saying that they're not going to vote in favor of the FISA renewal. So they broke their agreement. So President Trump said he's not going to approve FISA without the Save America Act attached. And for now, Bill Pulte will remain as the acting director of national intelligence. He's casting bombs all the way from France, and I feel like he is going to get his way. Also, there's a couple things that happened with Antifa yesterday. The Department of Justice criminally charging 15 leftists tied to Antifa and left-wing groups in Minnesota for conspiring to attack and impede federal agents during ICE raids. It includes Antifa Kyle. Do you know who Antifa Kyle is? Like, I followed him for a while because I couldn't believe he was as crazy as he is. But this TV station reporter, WCCO, TV station in Minneapolis, her name is Esme Murphy, and she did the story yesterday. Somehow.
U.S. Attorney played a social media post in which one of the protesters, Kyle Wagner, who is charged, is wearing a bulletproof vest and talking about abandoning peaceful protests.
No, not talking about peaceful protests anymore. We're not talking about having polite conversations anymore. There's nothing fun to chant about it. Get your guns and stop these people.
The U.S. Attorney came back to that line.
We're not talking about peaceful protests. His words, not mine.
Some of the incidents detailed in the 94-page indictment happened on March 1st. The U.S. Attorney says the goal of these protests were violent in nature.
They all joined an agreement, a conspiracy, to interfere with lawful immigration enforcement operations. The conspiracy was not to interfere by their voice, but to do it by force.
Show me what democracy looks like! We've heard that chant a whole lot, right? So the attack and the assault allegations that he talked about in that press conference included some things like ice chunks being thrown at the federal agents, one defendant sideswiping an agent in their vehicle and causing a collision. I mean, this is serious stuff. So yes, they have all been indicted. That was 15 leftists tied to Antifa and left-wing groups. Another one, a Minneapolis Antifa member, Isaac Alman Sant, was arrested after he was indicted for allegedly being part of a violent conspiracy to attack and impede federal officials in the Twin Cities. He, by the way, is a secret contributor to the Antifa terror collective that's known as Crime Think. Like, they even have a name for themselves. Crime Think, they call themselves. Here he is yesterday being taken out of his home. All the people are standing around.
612-444-2654.
Is your dog okay? Oh, I think I probably shouldn't play the audio of this. You can hear all the people standing outside, the protesters standing outside trying to take photos, take videos. And as he's leaving, he actually tells the other protesters to go ahead and call my attorney for me, please. Talk about it. I mean, the guy's part of a terror network, a Crime Think terror collective. And he gets all the support from people standing in the streets, and they're yelling at the ICE officers and saying things that the reason why I had to take the volume down was because of the way they speak to the officers. It's unbelievable. Anyway, they're all arrested. That's a good thing. Let's see them go spend a sizable amount of time in jail. That's the only way to end this, really. We'll have more because Abigail Spanberger just did something that is really creepy. This woman, she's the Virginia governor. Wait till you hear what she's just done to the voters in Virginia. It's amazing. It's just amazing how she has changed. I've got that story coming up and so much more at here it is at 9:20 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The guaranteed offer is the simplest, least stressful way to sell your home. You go to our website, you fill out a quick form, we set an appointment, we bring you an all-cash offer. Literally, there's no lockbox on the front of your house, there's no showings, we pay all cash, we close in as little as 21 days, stress-free. We've helped thousands of homeowners just like you sell your home the hassle-free way with the guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate.
Hey, this is Pastor Al, and join us on Super Talk 99.7, Sunday evenings from 7 to 8. We're going to look at the news from a biblical perspective.
Does the UFC fight plot bolster the case for the White House ballroom? There are those that think so. Another plane crash, this time in Texas. We'll have those stories at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right. Thank you, Jay. He's coming up at 9:30, a couple of minutes from now. Just in overnight, actually, Governor Abigail Spanberger of Virginia signed a bill that hands over Virginia's 13 electoral votes to whoever wins the most votes across the entire country. Even if Virginians vote the other way, she's just handing it over. Virginians who cast a ballot may as well be sitting at home twiddling their thumbs because their vote's not going to matter anymore. Abigail Spanberger campaigned as a normal Democrat, but she's governing like a democrat. Honestly. But she's not alone. There are 18 states and the District of Columbia that signed what they call the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. It's an agreement that awards all electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. Once the compact reaches the 270 electoral votes needed to take effect, they'll just give it to whomever. Now, it wouldn't have worked out well in the case of Donald Trump this time around because he won the popular vote. But it doesn't always happen that way. Why would they give all of the voting rights of the people of a certain state to the popular vote winner? It doesn't make any sense at all, except if they believe that they've got something coming up that will guarantee that they'll get the national vote, the national popular vote for the Democrat candidate every time. If they know something's happening behind the scenes that's going to lead to that, then that's where they all want to go. Of course, all of these states are Democrat states. It's California, of course, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, D.C., Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, and Washington state. Not a single Tennessee or, Oklahoma or Kentucky, like none of those states. Because we're not part of honestly, the demon that is driving that decision. It's gaining momentum. It needs to be stopped. Somebody's got to pay attention to this in Congress. Also, one more note, around 1 o'clock Central Time, the nation's eyes are going to be fixed on Wall Street because Kevin Warsh, who's now the lead of the Federal Reserve, he's going to hold his very first press conference. This is President Trump's pick, as you know, and President Trump has wanted to bring interest rates down, and the Fed makes their interest rate decision today. And Kevin Warsh is going to have to explain to the United States, the people of the United States, why interest rates are not going to come down. They cannot come down because of what's happening with the economy at the moment. So that's 1 o'clock today. I'm sure a whole lot of people are going to be covering that. Okay, still to come here. Nashville is home to 26 data centers currently, and there are more on the horizon. But there's a lot of pushback about this. But just recently, I haven't seen pushback before now. I've got a guest coming up that says all that pushback is just you people being played by China. And he's got a good argument for it. So we'll deal with that in just a couple of moments here. Let's go to Jay Harper, though, and get the latest in news at 9:30.
It is 9:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A weather forecast is coming up. The Justice Department says the alleged plot to attack last Sunday's UFC fight at the White House bolsters the case for a White House ballroom. ABC's Stephen Portnoy reports.
The overnight filing to the D.C. Circuit Appeals Court has the Justice Department arguing the plot to attack the UFC fight with drones and snipers is exactly the kind of threat the Ballroom Project would protect against. The Secret Service's deputy director has said despite the plot, the UFC event was never at risk. But the Justice Department says the plot underscores the need for a drone port and sniper nests on the roof of the ballroom. The Appeals Court is still weighing whether it will allow a lower court's order blocking construction to take effect. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
One person has perished after a private jet crashed on a Texas highway. The plane was headed to Austin from San Jose del Cabo, Mexico, but crash landed on a busy stretch of highway in Laredo, Texas. We hear now from ABC's Gio Benitez, who says video has surfaced showing Good Samaritans coming to the aid of the people that were trapped on board that burning aircraft.
flames shooting out of the flipped-over Cessna Citation Latitude. Good Samaritans and emergency responders rushing in to help the 6 people on board. A person can be seen in the cockpit as they attempt to smash the window, smoke billowing out of the opening as it fills the cabin.
We now move out west, where a wildfire emergency is underway in Washington state. More than 2,000 homes are threatened, and evacuations have been ordered. Alex Stone, he's in the fire zone in Spokane.
Firefighters here know that they have lost homes overnight in these neighborhoods right here, but they don't know how many homes. They've actually got to go in and count later on today. It's been so active overnight that they haven't been able to actually go in and get a full accounting. Over 2,300 homes are in the path of the fire. Hotels are full of evacuees waiting for word on the fate of their homes.
Back here in Tennessee, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has issued an endangered child alert today for a 15-year-old girl who's missing from Bedford County. The TBI says Marissa Hintz, she was last seen Monday in the Herman Road area of Shelbyville. Marissa was last seen wearing a yellow long-sleeve T-shirt. She's 5'4", 105 pounds, blonde hair, brown eyes. Officials say she has a medical condition that may make it difficult for her to make it back home safely without some help. Anyone who may have information or may have seen this young woman is asked to contact the TBI. That is the latest news. We've got weather next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Yeah, you're listening to the Chris Hand Show, but it's Joan Jones. Hello there. It's 9:37 here on your Wednesday, the 17th of June. And we have been dealing for a while here in Nashville with the effects of the push for data centers. So there's one that's being planned next to the zoo. There's one being planned for next to or on the campus of Fisk University as well. And the bad press just continues. I mean, they're noisy. We've heard about how much water they use. They gobble up electricity. They've got too many lights. And they're part of a plan to take over humanity, right? Yeah. Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell has signed an executive order. He says it's to ensure Nashvillians will be protected from any potential negative impacts from large-scale data centers, but he didn't say that he'd ban them because that's up to Metro City Council. There's 420,000 signatures on a petition to stop the one at the zoo. But all of the protest may be designed and paid for by none other than China. And that's according to my next guest. Here to join me is Sam Lyman. He is head of research at the Bitcoin Policy Institute and a former speechwriter and aide to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Sam, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Joan. It's great to be with you.
So first, I think that when listeners hear that your title is head of research at the Bitcoin Policy Institute, they're probably wondering, what's that got to do with AI centers? So can you help us understand that angle of this first?
Definitely. So both Bitcoin and AI depend on data centers to operate. And so people who are interested in Bitcoin are oftentimes there's an overlap with AI because it's essentially a very similar industry. What we're seeing across the country, though, is a lot of organic opposition to data centers for understandable reasons. For example, not a good idea to build a data center right next to a zoo. It's very understandable that local communities would be opposed to that. But what we're also seeing on a smaller level is some measure of inorganic opposition to data centers that we believe is being fueled by China. And so that's not to say that there's a lot of natural opposition, but what we're trying to identify at the Bitcoin Policy Institute is where is the public discourse potentially being shaped by Chinese interests?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so a simple question. Why all of a sudden are data centers a thing? I mean, they've been around for forever, but they are growing in popularity, and we're seeing more and more of them. So we've survived in the USA for a long time, first of all, without them. Then they started being built. Now they're being built bigger and more frequently. So why are they so important right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. So as you mentioned, Joan, they've always been a thing, but it's just until recently that they've become such a flashpoint in American politics. And we want to look deeper at why that might be. And so they're especially prominent right now because, of course, there's the AI boom taking place. You have a lot of different large language models being built across the country. And in order for those AI models to be built, they require data centers. They require heavy amounts of compute to be able to operate. But beyond that, you also have this big build out in tech generally. I mean, any of us who use a smartphone depend heavily on a data center for the data that we receive and to watch YouTube videos, to FaceTime our families. Data centers have grown commensurate with the growth in technology generally, but especially with AI. Okay, so it's not an evil thing. It's that it's powering the technology that we use every day. Exactly. And so there's a lot of pushback about things like the amount of water that is used. So there's a Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory study that said in 2023, data center consumption of water in the USA is 17.4 billion gallons. Sounds like a lot, but swimming pools use 200 billion gallons. Golf courses, 476 billion gallons. So, I mean, it is a lot, but there's an accounting for that. Also, the data centers are now saying that they use water and they can recycle that water. They're using a lot of electricity, but they're also setting up their own grids to make that possible without straining the grids. So there's all these other things that are happening around it. So let's talk about your investigation that found that Chinese state media propaganda that included a U.S.-based nonprofit network
bankrolled by a guy named Neville Roy Singham, who is a Shanghai-based American. He's got ties to the Chinese Communist Party, and more than $2 billion in dark money from foreign billionaires routed into the very groups that are now demanding moratoriums on the data centers. So what's the nexus here? What's happening?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, this is not to in any way diminish the local opposition that's very real and organic to different data center projects across the country. Americans need to be heard with the concerns that they have about data centers being built in their communities. And it's important that data center companies and communities come together to find a workable solution for everybody. Now, that being said, we also know, as you mentioned, Joan, that there is a Shanghai-based multimillionaire, Neville Singham, who is a self-identified Marxist who's been pushing for socialist agitation in the United States for nearly a decade now. And what he's done is he's worked with his nonprofit executives to openly collaborate with Chinese state media, which is English language media, to paint a sour picture of data center production here in the United States. And beyond that, we know that he's worked through his political arm called the Party for Socialism and Liberation, of which there's actually a chapter there in Nashville, to get people to demonstrate against data centers and against AI build out. Now, why would he do this? He's doing it because he's very much aligned with the CCP. And the United States and China are locked in a race for who can have the most powerful AI models right now. So it's in China's interest to have the United States slow its AI build out in whatever way possible. And one of the most vulnerable ways that China can do that is by pushing protests and a lot of sentiment against data centers here in the United States, essentially latching on to what is an organic movement, but also amplifying the anger, stoking the grief, and sowing even greater division than would exist otherwise.
Yeah, he's doing this as well through a network, like a news organization network. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so he has a nonprofit called Breakthrough News, which essentially parrots CCP talking points, especially on the issue of AI, but not just AI. It also extends to things like the war in Gaza or immigration enforcement here in the United States. What you'll see with Neville Singham's nonprofits is they copy-paste, in many cases, CCP talking points that are anti-American in every way, shape, and form. And what he'll do is those talking points will then be disseminated by other leftist groups in the United States to paint an ugly picture of the data center build-out and the technology industry in the United States generally.
So he's doing it through his news organization. That's probably just one way that he's achieving this. What else is he doing? This Neville Singham, and can you tell us who he is? Like, how did he become so powerful? Who is he?
Yeah, that's the irony of it all. Neville Singham made all of his money through capitalism, and now he's pushing for communism worldwide.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It could not be greater. So he made over $700 million in a tech company called ThoughtWorks. And then he sold that company. And almost immediately after selling that company, he dispatched himself over to Shanghai. And he's lived in Shanghai ever since. And so he's used technology to build his fortune. And now he's using that fortune to fight American technology, essentially to tear down the very system that he came up in.
That is insane. He's also somehow connected with Code Pink. Explain that.
Right. Yeah, he is very much involved with Code Pink in the sense that the founder of Code Pink, Jody Evans, is Neville Singham's wife. So that's the irony there. Even greater irony is that Code Pink actually spoke out against China's human rights abuses in the early 2010s. But after Neville Singham and Jody Evans got married, they suddenly changed their tune and started to become apologists for China's human rights abuses. You even have record of Code Pink diminishing what China has done to the Uyghur population, for example.
Right.
Being more or less apologists for what the CCP is doing to perpetrate a genocide amongst the Uyghur population. It's really sad, but it shows that money talks. And when you're married to the greatest funder of socialist agitation here in the United States, you're probably going to change your tune. That's exactly what happened with Jody Evans and Code Pink.
So do you think they're having success in this effort to turn Americans away from data centers and sort of hand it all over to China?
I do believe they're having success. My research right now is focusing specifically on areas where the Singham network has had a demonstrated impact in the anti-data center protests across the country. But what I've been able to log is that the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which again is Singham's political arm, has been involved in dozens of protests across the country, including in more than a dozen states. And because of their demonstrations, they've been able to delay billions of dollars in data center build out in the United States. So we're working right now to put an exact number on the financial harm that they've done to the AI build out. And we're looking as well at the number of moratoriums that they've successfully imposed through their demonstrations. And that looks like it should be more than a dozen as well. So we're doing more research on our end to really put into numerical terms what the material impact Singham has had in this debate is. And we're still building out those numbers, but we should have those released probably sometime next week or the week thereafter.
Are you seeing that they've had any effect here in Nashville? You said they have a branch here in Nashville. Are they having an effect on the debates that are happening here in Nashville about our data centers?
That one is harder to say. I know that the Party for Socialism and Liberation does have a chapter there in Nashville. It does seem, though, that a lot of the data center protests there in your city have actually been very organic. I mean, you have Brad Paisley, for example, rallying the public against the data center at the zoo, which is totally understandable. Nobody wants a data center next to a zoo. But from what I've seen, there's not that much documented evidence of Singham's network being too heavily involved in Nashville.
Okay, what areas are you seeing that they're having a big effect?
They're having a big effect in Prince George's County in Maryland. There they were able to impose a 6-month moratorium on data center build out. They've also had a civil effect in Utah. A lot of people have seen Mr. Wonderful saying that China is leading the protests against the Box Elder County data center. That's not entirely true, but it is very fair to say that Singham is working through his political arm there in Utah to amass huge amounts of people to protest the data center build out there. We've also seen in Arizona, California, Louisiana, North Carolina, Georgia. In all of these places, Singham's political network has been protesting data centers to great effect, including data center moratoria in each of those states.
Hey, so they're using money to launch these protests. I mean, what does it require? Does it require paying people to show up to a protest? Is that what he's doing?
It requires, in some cases, yeah, it requires paying people to show up to these protests. You've seen, for example, the ICE protests in the wintertime or the anti-Israel protests after October 7th. There was, out of nowhere, hundreds of people amassed in places like Times Square who were pushing against the United States policies on these issues. And you had interviewers who would actually ask them, why are you here? And you had different people say, oh, I'm here because I'm being paid.
Yeah.
With the data centers, too, it seems very likely that there is a similar model being followed there, that there are people who are there because they're being paid. But beyond just being paid to be there, you have people who are employed by these nonprofits that Singham runs, for example. And they have every interest to show up to these protests because it's part of their MO as a nonprofit leader who works for Neville Singham.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, so you've got something coming out that's going to detail just where these data center protests are being effective. What is that and when is it coming out?
It'll be part 2 of our look into the foreign influence campaign against American AI. We're targeting probably mid-next week for release. So stay tuned. People can learn more at our website, bitcoinpolicy.org.
And where is part 1? How can people get their hands on that part?
Oh, that's also available on our website, bitcoinpolicy.org. And they can just go there, and it's one of the very first things they'll see.
All right, good. Now I follow you on X. Tell people where they can follow you.
Yeah, my handle is at Sam Lyman 33. That's SAMLYMAN.
All right, Sam, really appreciate you bringing that to us this morning. And I think we're going to have our eyes a little bit more open as we go into these debates about whether or not we should have data centers. Really interesting conversation. Thank you so much. That's Sam Lyman, and he is with the Bitcoin Policy Institute. Pretty knowledgeable guy. Thanks, Sam. Coming
Thanks,
up
Joan.
here, yep, you bet. Have a great day. Coming up here, we've got more. We've got news coming up and at the top of the hour and so much more coming up here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy with Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and this morning we are out and about at my house, my brand new house that I've been talking about on the radio, with Nate from USS. What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm excellent. How about you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
We invited Nate out. Now, obviously, when you're a new homeowner, especially when you buy a house that's got a few years on it, you don't know what you're dealing with in terms of foundation. And I know that Nate knows a lot more about what I don't see and what I don't know about than I do. So bring the experts out and get them to check out your house. Hey guys, Matt Murphy again with Nate with USS, and Nate has just wrapped up kind of a look at the house. And Nate, what'd you find?
Well, your house is in pretty good shape for the age of it. I had to look pretty hard to find.
Okay.
Your house being on a slope like it is here, I think we could do a lot of good by trying to terminate your downspouts a little
Okay.
further from the house there.
Okay.
Roof water is the killer of foundations, and so if we can just get it to a positive grade to drain away from your house, I think that's real cheap insurance.
You want to kind of get it out and downhill.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
So
the idea.
make sure that it doesn't come right back down towards the foundation walls and causing issues, settlement or leakage.
Now, if folks are watching this video and they are like, we need to get Nate out to the house to do a look. I mean, it took, I watched you do it. It's, like 30, 45 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
To do a comprehensive kind of an examination around the house. And they just give you a call and schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. You can call our main phone number, or you can call reach USSTN.com and schedule right through the website there. Our girls in the call center will get back to you just about immediately, as long as it's during business hours. So
this just makes a lot of sense, folks, for you guys to do an examination of your house like we've done, to check it out. I'm going to get those gutters done with Nate and his team at USS, and then we'll do a video and let you know how those look at the end of all of this. So thank you, guys.
Hey, that'd be great.
We appreciate you, brother.
Matt, we appreciate you.
President Trump wrapping up his G7 summit visit today. We'll have that story. Also, a West Nashville traffic stop. It turns into a major drug bust. We'll have those stories at 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, it is 9:58. A couple of minutes to go here before we get that update from Jay Harper. I was just looking at the Wall Street Journal and their article regarding the talks over Iran with the United States. Here's the title to their piece that they're running right now. It says, Iran is returning to nuclear talks, no longer afraid of America. Even the Wall Street Journal. I mean, honestly, they say Tehran has learned that it can survive the worst Washington can throw at it, but it still needs sanctions relief to stave off economic calamity. After more than 3 months of bombing and blockades, the U.S. and Iran are back to square one, preparing for what promises to be difficult negotiations over limits to Tehran's nuclear ambitions. This time, the Iranians will come to the table armed with valuable knowledge. They can survive the worst the Americans can throw at them. President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gambling that their fierce campaign of airstrikes would overthrow Iran's theocratic regime, or at the very least, force it to make major concessions. And the Wall Street Journal says nothing of that happened. I don't see that I agree with that. I mean, their supreme leader, their dear supreme leader, is 6 foot under, and his son hasn't been heard from. I doubt more every single day that he's even alive, but we haven't heard from him. Lots of the leaders are killed. Their army, their navy is somewhere below the water. There's so much that has happened. I don't understand how the Wall Street Journal and others can classify it as nothing has changed. We'll deal with that. Also, we've got more about the Iranian deal coming up here and what President Trump's, his antics at the G7 where he is in France right now. Classic Trump stuff. It's all coming up here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 10 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Stand by. We'll get you that weather forecast. President Trump finishing up his visit to the G7 World Leader Summit today, and there are still some questions about what's exactly in that memo of understanding between the U.S. and Iran. G7 world leaders, they have, however, weighed in on the deal. ABC's Karen Travers, she reports the latest.
The leaders of the G7 nations released a joint statement on a range of world issues, including the U.S.-Iran deal, saying the group welcomes the memo of understanding. We support and are ready to contribute to its implementation, the leaders write. The G7 countries, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the U.S., highlighted the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, emphasizing the critical passageway should operate without restrictions or tolls, which they say is the, quote, bedrock of international trade.
The Washington, D.C. reflecting pool. It was refurbished at a cost of several $1 million, and it looked beautiful for a little while, but now, not so much. Mary Bruce reports.
The president just spent $15 million in taxpayer money to paint the bottom of the pool, quote, American flag blue, but the water is now green, overrun with algae. Workers have been out spotted trying to clean it up. National Park Service workers dumping hydrogen peroxide into the water. In a statement, the White House says they are deploying, quote, high-tech nanobubble ozone technology to kill the algae and keep the water of the reflecting pool crystal clear.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, a 57-year-old man was arrested after a traffic stop Monday along Highway 100 after officers reportedly discovered more than 9 pounds of narcotics. According to Metro Police, Richard Anderson, he was stopped at the intersection of Highway 100 and Cheekwood Terrace for failing to maintain his lane of travel. While an officer was writing the guy a ticket, another one turned his canine loose on the dog to have a little sniff. Well, the dog indicated there were narcotics in the vehicle. During a search, officers found 9 pounds, 6 ounces of narcotics in the rear tailpipe of the vehicle. Those narcotics later tested positive for cocaine and fentanyl. Anderson was booked into Metro Jail, charged with possession of fentanyl. He has since been released on a $40,000 bond. That is the latest news. We've got weather coming up. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Good morning to you. I'm Joan Jones at 10:06 here, sitting in for the vacationing Chris Hand, who is sitting on the beach somewhere. Good for him. He and his family. He'll be back on Monday, so I'll be sitting in for today and then tomorrow again. Friday, we all have off. It's Juneteenth, and we will be off here at the station. You'll be hearing, I guess, the best. We call it the best ofs. Yeah, is that right, Mason?
Yeah, some best of content there.
Which is, stellar. Like that morning show is like amazing. So you'll be hearing amazing stuff from the morning show and from Chris Hand's show because Mason puts it together.
Yeah, we'll doing some good stuff.
All right, cool.
I wish we were here.
Yeah, I mean, I won't even go there. I won't go there.
I will. No, I'm just kidding.
Mason wants to come in. Couple things that have just crossed the wires. I do want to get to what President Trump is talking about at the G7 meeting and this 14-point draft agreement. CNN has reportedly gotten its hands on it, and they don't have anything good to say about it. Are you shocked? I mean, honestly. One of the things that has just happened, that just crossed here, is that the Trump administration, the Labor Department, just said that if blue states don't comply on these fraud investigations, Vice President J.D. Vance has been out there. He's now the fraud czar, I guess you would call him. He says that the Labor Secretary, his name is Keith Sonderling, he says that if the blue states don't comply with the investigations into fraud, they're going to cut off unemployment insurance funds. And he says a person with one Social Security number could get multiple benefits in multiple states. And that's why they are bringing this action on. Here's he's the acting Labor Secretary, Keith Sonderling.
I will be the first Secretary of Labor to cut off the state's administrative funding. So to answer your question, because of the leadership of the Vice President and the task force and the President's commitment to stopping fraud, I will essentially cut off the state's administrative funds, and then they won't be able to administer this unemployment insurance due to the fraud. Now, we want to make sure that people who are actually eligible for this, who need to get back in the workforce, are getting it, but this is going to be on the governors, and especially the Democrat governors, and that's where the states where we see the highest fraud. So they are on notice that they will be hurting their own citizens if they continue to allow people's taxpayer dollars to be stolen. And where we see this money going, like I said before, it's going to gangs, it's going to criminal rings. That money is buying guns and drugs and harming those communities. So that needs to stop, and this president is committed to stopping fraud across the board. And as your Secretary of Labor, I'm committed to taking unprecedented action to cut off these states, and then they will have to deal with the consequences of the mess they started because they refused to put in these fraud controls that this administration wants.
Oh, there you go. I love when they take action like this. I mean, that is, as Chris Hand would say, that's based. Did I use that right, Mason?
Nailed it.
I did.
That's perfect.
Because I'm relatively uncool. You know, Chris Hand is the super cool. I am like not.
No, you are.
Yeah. And the other thing that just crossed the wires this morning is that we dealt with the story yesterday that Major League Baseball, you know, they're in the midst of their Pride Month shenanigans where they're making the players wear Pride hats, Pride shirts, Pride socks. You know, they're having Pride night, all of this stuff. But if a player decides to put, you know, a handwritten Bible verse on their hat, they're in violation. And the MLB said yesterday that they're going to start fining players who do that, which, led to a bunch of different people saying, go ahead, put it on there. We'll pay the fine for you. I love that. Well, here today, we've learned just recently that Florida's Attorney General says that they have launched an investigation after the MLB cracked down on the Christian faith because of players putting a Bible verse on their LGBT pride caps. The MLB is facing a huge backlash. Apparently, Senator Josh Hawley has written a letter. I think we need something a little stronger than letters. But here's Fox News talking about what is happening.
Against expressing their Christian faith. It comes after several San Francisco Giants players wrote Bible verses on their caps during a Pride Night promotion last week.
Now, why is it that only San Francisco Giants players are doing this? I mean, come on, guys. I know there's so many more Christians in the Major League Baseball. I know there are. Why isn't everybody? I mean, if it's done en masse, what are they going to do? Are they going to fine everybody? Are they going to make a big deal of it? I mean, they're already making a big deal of it and revealing themselves as being anti-Christian.
Lucas Tomlinson straightens this out for us, I think. Good morning, Lucas.
Good morning, Bill. Senator Josh Hawley has written a letter to Major League Baseball saying that these players are being subjected to religious discrimination after Major League Baseball players on the San Francisco Giants were criticized by Major League Baseball for writing Bible verses on their team-issued Pride Night hats during Friday night's game against the Chicago Cubs, including Landon Roop, a 27-year-old right-hander from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, who started and pitched 4 2/3 innings with Genesis chapter 9, verses 12 through 16 written on his cap next to the rainbow colored team logo, as you can see there. After the game, Roop said, "There's no hate at all. It's just what I stand for and what I stand on. I believe in God." 2 relievers also made appearances in the game with Bible verses on their hats. Another took the mound without his Pride Night cap, instead wearing the traditional orange lettering. The pitchers have a supporter in Vice President J.D. Vance, who posted on X, quote, "Trump won. We don't have to do this anymore." Now, San Francisco first added Pride Night uniforms in 2021. After the game, the Giants issued a statement apologizing to the LGBTQ plus community. Major League Baseball issuing a statement saying the writing on the caps violates our rules and consistent with normal practice. We have warned the players about future violations.
All right, so this is setting up to be a big showdown between Major League Baseball and Christians. Oh, my goodness. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see where this goes. Hopefully enough bad publicity has been generated by Christians, and we need to say more and do more to stop this from continuing in Major League Baseball. All right, look, we got to get to what's happening with the Iranian deal. It's 10:13 now. In the absence of the details about this deal, mainstream media has just been filling all the gaps, filling that void with all kinds of talking points, the garbage that comes straight from Iranian state TV. I don't understand why, but they are. So it is a memorandum of understanding as we know it. It provides the framework for how Iran is going to operate as a country. There are more detailed talks to come, and apparently those talks will be happening.
Corporation.
That always happens to Chris. I know it does. I hear it, so I don't feel bad. Anyway, it's we do know that there are talks to come on Friday. And the U.S. is taking steps, they say, because if Iran doesn't live up to the promises that in this memorandum of understanding, war breaks out again. And that's just all there is to it. Now, this, by the way, is classic Donald Trump as he arrives this morning. So he's at the G7 in France. They've all been talking about this Iranian deal, and he arrives late. Everybody else is already seated at the table when President Trump arrives, and he arrives with an aide. I don't know who she is. As he's walking around the table, he stops and addresses everybody at the table.
Hello, I'm the boss.
Yeah, he says, hello, I'm the boss. And everybody kind of does a nervous laugh because they know he's the boss. He's the one calling all the shots. President Trump sits down, he takes a seat, and they do a roundtable discussion. Now, we have learned a little bit about what is in this memorandum. And this is from Fox News this morning. Trey Yingst, I really trust him as a reporter. He's just terrific. He says that the proposed Trump-Iran deal would move to dispose of Iran's enriched uranium, which is number one on the list of things that we need done. Carry out a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Okay, that's going to be a little tougher. Resume the traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, and the blockade, and allow tiered sanctions relief based on compliance. So if there's a point at which I have a problem with this deal, there should be no sanctions relief for Iran. There shouldn't be. They need to continue to be sanctioned because they're just bad actors, and we know they have been, and we should not trust them as far as we can throw them. Trey Yingst this morning on Fox News as he is reporting on this deal.
Israel with more. Trey, what do you know?
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. The signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran is just 48 hours away, and some details are already leaking out. Reports do indicate we'll see the Strait of Hormuz immediately open, and the U.S. Navy will lift their blockade of Iranian ports. The Iranians will agree to negotiate in the next 60 days the details of their nuclear program, and in return will receive tiered sanctions relief, along with a ceasefire across all fronts, including Lebanon. Vice President J.D. Vance was on the 5 last night and said this about why the public hasn't seen the deal yet.
Why can't you or won't you release that document now?
Yeah, so there's some diplomatic procedure at work here where the Qataris and the Pakistanis have been mediating this entire negotiation with the Iranians, and they've asked us effectively to sequence the way that we roll this out. I frankly don't understand it. We'd be happy to release the agreement today or tomorrow. We may release it as late as Friday.
Okay, so we may release it as early as Friday or as late as Friday. Personally, I don't think that's good enough. I think that it needs to be released a lot sooner. People are filling in the gaps, like I said, with all kinds of misinformation about what is in this deal. But it is being panned by CNN. It's being panned by the Wall Street Journal as really not bringing what needs to be brought. Now, I think we all know that this memo of understanding is just a framework. Like, all of that comes later. But if they sit down and they have the discussions, they can get to the final framework of what this would look like. President Trump, however, is saying that if Iran doesn't want to cooperate, I did it again. That there is no cooperation from Iran. If Iran goes back to the well and continues to act in bad faith, he's just going to bomb again.
Final, or are you still? No, it's not final. It's a memorandum of understanding. And if I don't like it, we'll go back to shooting at them, dropping bombs on their head.
When do you expect the word?
If I don't like it, if they don't behave, we'll go right back to dropping bombs right smack in the middle of their head.
Right smack in the middle of their head. Hold on, we got to hear it again. You ready?
If I don't like it, if they don't behave, we'll go right back to dropping bombs right smack in the middle of their head.
Oh.
Okay? Because they
So
misbehaved for 47 years. All right?
Does it include?
But nobody could have made this deal. I mean, the JCPOA done by Obama, he handed him $1.7 billion in cash, gave him hundreds of millions of dollars, gave him billions and billions of dollars, but he gave him $1.7 billion in cash, green cash from banks, into a Boeing 757 and flew it into Iran. And they stood at the plane. I have pictures of it, like, oh my, look at this money he's giving us. He tried to bribe his way out. I didn't do that. Nobody mentions that. 1.7 billion and hundreds of millions of dollars. They tried to bribe their way out of it. And you know what the Iranians did? They laughed at Obama and they said he's a stupid son of.
And that's where we end that part because I know what comes next. I can see it on the screen. So, yeah, President Trump says, go ahead, try me, FAFO, you'll find out. Again, we're going to find out more, but at this point, we don't know a whole lot. And it's going to be signed on Friday. We'll get to know more about it on Friday. I really wish they would release more information because, honestly, at this point, it's just filling the gaps with all kinds of misinformation, disinformation, and it's all coming from Iran. Be careful what you hear, folks. Okay. We've still got more to come here on Super Talk 99.7 and coming up as well. We've got the latest on the planned terror attack, and I'm going to bring in Kathy Hinners, who has done Homeland Security. She's worked with Homeland Security. She's kind of got some information that I think is really interesting about the drones and what's happening behind the scenes here. We're going to bring her in at 10:30. Right now, it's 10:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Yeah. Okay.
President Trump, he's doubling down on the passage of the Save America Act. Also, some new retail sales numbers are out there, and it's surprising some folks. Metro Council, they pass a new budget. That's all coming up at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right. 10:25 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Little news just passing here that you remember who Lance Twiggs is, right? He's the transgender roommate and romantic partner of Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson. We're just learning that he's been given limited immunity for a statement that he gave to authorities in April. So they call this use immunity. He gave a statement on April 20th, apparently. Prosecutors said that they wanted to use it. They said in preparation for a preliminary hearing, Mr. Twiggs gave a recorded statement under oath. And after an admonition that any false statement would be punishable by law and could be charged as obstruction of justice, Mr. Twiggs was also given use immunity by the U.S. Attorney's Office, meaning that the statements that he gave in that meeting could not be used against him. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm not sure I understand that. We've also learned where he is for months. This is from Yahoo News. I'm not sure who the original publisher of this information is, but they say that he disappeared. Once Tyler Robinson was arrested, we didn't see anything from Lance Twiggs. And now apparently he's been located after months of being sort of on the run and, behind the scenes. He hasn't been spotted in a long time. It says for months after the assassination, the whereabouts of Lance Twiggs has remained unknown. He disappeared from his St. George residence in Utah that he shared with Robinson prior to Kirk's assassination. The New York Post has obtained some information that Twiggs left the state and fled to Texas. He's currently living there with his Mormon family. That's really weird. Why did they have to say Mormon? He's just living with his family. Recent images taken of him at the location show him wearing a Taco Bell t-shirt and appearing disheveled with long, unkempt hair. He reportedly now spends part of his days reading a fantasy novel, has even been seen with one captured in photos. At other times, he plays video games, frequently runs errands for his parents, which appears to be the only occasion that he leaves the house. Apparently, he's not wearing his furry costumes anymore. Maybe his parents banned them. That would be a good idea. They probably should have banned that a long time ago. So yeah, he's been spotted. He's now in Texas. And there's another story this morning. This is about Luigi Mangione. You remember him. He's the guy that allegedly murdered the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, in that video that we all saw. He's going to use the psychiatric defense. He's in his state trial. So you know that he's got a federal trial and a state trial. So in this state trial, he's going to say that he had extreme emotional disturbance when he pulled that gun out of his backpack and shot Brian Thompson in the back on the street in Manhattan. And could, if that works, the legal gambit, this is from the New York Post, the legal gambit would knock the charge down to manslaughter instead of murder. And it would carry, of course, less prison time. Jurors have to buy that explanation, though. The alleged assassin's apparent psychiatric issues weren't immediately clear, but the attorneys must tell Manhattan prosecutors what their defense is. So they said that he suffers and has now triggered an extreme emotional disturbance at the time of the occurrence. What they're saying is that, he had back surgery and that the back surgery was unsuccessful. And that he's still in extreme pain, and that extreme pain makes him, a little loopy. Of course, he was also on medication to deal with the pain, so there's a lot of that. So that's part of how his lawyers are now shaping his defense. The lawyers also yesterday missed a deadline. The prosecutors, not his lawyers, the prosecutors missed a deadline for filing a piece of paper that would have moved him to the court to make his filings yesterday. That's why it's happening today, because yesterday the prosecutors forgot to file the paper. They filled out the paperwork, but they didn't file it. So he didn't have any transportation to the courthouse. It's a dumb mistake. It's a mistake that it leaves people to feel like, hey, listen, maybe these prosecutors aren't on top of this. And it feels like maybe they're giving up the prosecution. I'm not really sure, but that was a dumb mistake. And that's why he is in court today. We'll follow more of that as it continues. We had that planned terror attack on the UFC event at the White House coming up here, and what Kathy Hinners has to say about it. You know Kathy from the morning show. She's been on many times. We're going to bring her in and ask her some questions about that. I think she's got some really interesting background on that. It's coming up here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll get you another weather forecast here in just a couple of minutes. President Trump, he's renewing his push for Congress to pass the voter ID measure known as the Save America Act. Now, he says he won't sign the reauthorization of FISA, Section 702. That provides a key intelligence tool if Congress passes it. Unless Congress also passes the Save America Act. He made the comments at the G7 summit.
I said, but we want FISA approved. We want the Save America Act approved. Voter ID, proof of citizenship, no mail-in ballots, with exceptions, like for the military, you're sick, you're traveling, disabled.
Well, new numbers coming out. Consumers continue to defy economists' expectations in the month of May. ABC's Jim Ryan says cash registers are ringing loudly.
Retail sales jumped 0.9% last month, more than double the gain of April. Analysts say, though, that much of the increase came as a result of higher gas prices, which drove up receipts at service stations. Take out food and energy, retail sales rose by 0.7%.
One person has died after a private jet crashed on a Texas highway. The plane was headed to Austin from San Jose del Cabo, Mexico, but crash landed on a busy stretch of highway in Laredo, Texas. 6 people were on board, and Good Samaritans, as well as first responders, they rushed in to help in this burning aircraft. You may have seen some of the video. It's pretty dramatic. We hear now from ABC's Gio Benitez.
We saw that there was actually movement inside the aircraft. That's when my husband jumped out of the car and went straight to help out.
Zaida Garza and her husband were driving home when they came upon the scene. He was one of those heroes.
I was scared for the people inside and for the people that was helping. I didn't know if that fire was going to make the aircraft explode.
Back here in Nashville, Metro Council has approved a $3.8 billion budget. They did that last night for the fiscal year beginning July 1. That was after a debate over a proposal to cut the local sales tax on groceries. The spending plan largely mirrors Mayor Freddie O'Connell's proposed budget, but includes nearly $9 million in changes. That came through a substitute budget that was introduced by the Budget and Finance Committee chairperson. Among the changes is an additional $1 million for the Barnes Fund. That fund supports affordable housing initiatives across the city. The budget keeps the property tax rate unchanged and includes raises for Metro employees. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
It is 10:37 here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm Joan Jones. I'm in for Chris Hand, and he's going to be back on Monday, so you can prepare for that. Last time that we were here together yesterday, late yesterday morning, we heard the details of this planned terror attack on the UFC event that was taking place at the White House on Sunday, and those details were just being released. Now we have a better picture of, the whole thing, the who, what, when, where, how, why. And it's kind of frightening. Let's bring in Kathy Hinners here. She is a retired police officer from Albany, New York. She worked for U.S. Homeland Security, instructing law enforcement across the country on the Islamic threat. Now she works to educate people on the Muslim Brotherhood. And Kathy, we've got a few details here from the latest that we know about this, and that's that attackers wanted to use small lethal drones to ram into buildings and cause a mass stampede kind of thing. And then as everybody's running away, they would run into a line of waiting snipers. There was a second wave that was planned as well. That one was to storm the gates of the White House. 5 people have been charged for their alleged roles in this scheme. And they're from all over. I found this pretty interesting. Tyson Proper of Ohio, Daniel Eskridge of Missouri, Abraham Alvarez of Nebraska, Brian Omar Roa, and Michael Allen Thomas of California. Now, their grievances, apparently, were against the government and federal officials, including U.S. support for Israel, the handling of Jeffrey Epstein files, data centers. They wanted to kill billionaires. They also targeted our own Senator Marsha Blackburn. It turns out Proper's mom is the one that turned him in and started the investigation because she was suspicious about the things he was doing. So, Kathy Hinners, the Fed has said that there are 23 people involved in this plot. They've got 5 in custody. Nobody's talking about any of the other suspects in this case. What are you thinking about that?
Well, I think it's interesting that, the names don't always come right out, but it makes me feel like there's a bigger connection as to who inspired them, or were they inspired by anything in particular, or who funded this. My first thought, as it always goes to, is, Islamic jihad ideology, but it also stinks of anti-government Antifa type ideology. But so I go, and I'm not saying it's attached to jihadists, however, it is similar to tactics used by both ISIS and Al-Qaeda, especially the tactics are being used in the West African province, that specific the Islamic State of West Africa. But they've used drones loaded with explosives to kill in the Christian villages in Nigeria. But the other similarity, which I thought was really strange, is that they deploy other members, 2 of the group, to targeted areas to attack the villagers that are trying to escape by shooting them.
Oh, so it's very similar.
Very similar. And so, ISIS and Al-Qaeda both have published magazines in English. So, was that something that they were looking at? But my questions too, and I'll get to this other thing that I have been thinking about. But my other question is drones are expensive. Where did the funding come from? The size of the drones, or the capability of the drones that they were going to use, had to be specific enough to, explode on demand. But, where did the explosives come from? What were they made of? How were they produced? Who did them? Who made these bombs? And how did they learn, and where did they learn how to make these bombs? So that's kind of my question. We haven't heard anything about the explosives, but I'm very interested to know where their training came from. If they were more complicated, or because there's a firing train system that has to be in place for bombs to work, proficiently. So that's a lot of my questions. But then I've been thinking, and I started looking into this, because this was something that is attached to a lot of their names. It's called accelerationism, which, when you look it up, it's the desire to hasten the collapse of society as we know it through violence. It's not a new concept, though, because the blueprint is clearly laid out from publications like The Siege or Turner Diaries. And so we know
What
that...
What are they? Are they online?
Yeah, well, you can get them online. It's very hard to find them now, and you really don't want to look for them because then you're kind of flagged for looking at them.
Yeah.
But The Siege is basically a compilation of neo-Nazi essays that predicts the end of society by accelerating it through violence. The Turner Diaries is similar by creating unrest, by destroying our sense of security, that, no one is safe and that the government is useless and helpless. Timothy McVeigh, if you remember from the Murrah Federal Building back in 1995, had admitted to using the Turner Diaries as inspiration. So, there's a lot of different components there. got a little bit of, jihad and a little bit of Antifa or, some of these other cults, if you will. So I'm I'm kind of anxious to hear what the bottom line is going to be, if we ever know it. I mean, certainly if it has the jihad mentality to it, we might never know that. But then you also have to look, Joan, at the left and the rhetoric that's being, pushed out there about, just destroying, they don't like America. And this is what our kids are learning, that it's, the minds of the youth. You can't love our country, or you're a nationalist, or you can't be proud of your faith because then you're a Christian right-winger. So it's all being portrayed as evil and bad. So there's such, the bottom line, I think, is going to be such an interesting thing to find out what their inspiration was.
Do you think that we'll actually find out the truth? I mean, a lot of times these investigations occur and they're sort of in the dark of night. We don't understand the exact details of what happens. And part of that's because I think that it could inspire others to act in the same way.
Yeah, especially when you look at the mentality here, we know of 5 guys that actually had this mentality. I don't believe that they're all there, obviously, but the hatred. And so I don't know that we'll ever know either. I think law enforcement keeps a tight, I think they're very tight about what they're releasing, especially the FBI. They never really had a good track record of telling this. And if it ever does come out, it'll probably be on some rare publication newspaper, way on the back page.
Right.
So it's sad, though, that as Americans, we cannot know the truth. And I think that more of it will come out as they arrest more. And I hope that they do find, I'm sure they do know the majority of the names of the other, 23. But we do have a right to know. I think we do have a right to know if it is, whether it's just, far left fringe, or if it is the jihadist mentality. I think we have a right to know, but it's yet to be seen. I think they've got a lot of investigating on their hands. They've got a lot of work to do.
So they've already said that they had been communicating on the Signal app, but there were early reports that these guys all joined a TikTok group called Vanguard of the Old, and that's where it began in March. Vanguard of the Old. Have you ever heard of that one?
No, I have not. And I thought it was interesting, though, one of the names of the leader, apparently they called him the Shepherd. So I don't know if that came from the Vanguard, but I thought that was kind of interesting, too. But, think about it. I mean, we're talking about, I guess, 19-year-olds to early 20-somethings. How good are such a large group of keeping secrets?
Yes.
I mean,
exactly.
I mean, most of them that I know can't not tell you something that happened, an hour ago, let alone something that they've been planning so large. But that's scary too.
Yeah.
I think that's very scary that they've got the mindset to try to do something this large and this deadly. I think that's really scary and unfortunate for our youth.
The one guy, Tyson Proper, the one that was turned in by his mother, that this all began, he said that he used his graduation money. So he had about $3,000 that was given to him at graduation, and that's what he was using to fund this operation. I think they would need a lot more than that to buy a drone. They were going to use multiple drones, so they would need more. Tell me, I mean, I don't even know. Are we talking about drones costing $3,000, or do they cost like $20,000?
Well, there's so many different types. You can buy a toy for $30,000, but starting around $2,700 are the professional commercial type grade. And I believe they probably would have had to have something that, because it
would have to carry the weapon on it, right?
Right. I mean, you've got to somehow get explosives on that drone, and then to operate the drone, I mean, a lot of the large ones that are used by law enforcement require a license. But, where did they get these drones? How did they put them together? How did they train to use them properly? I mean, steering something with explosives on it I would think would require some talent or some experience or, some education on how to do that. So those are all questions that I have. I'm really interested in the bomb aspect of it.
Yeah.
But it's, that's something we'll probably never know. But the expense, if he spent $3,000, it didn't go far. when you think about the amount of ammunition that they had, the type of weapons that they had, ammunition's not cheap by any stretch right now, and it hasn't been for a long time. So how did they get that money? Were some of them employed, gainfully? I know some of them were in the military, but we're talking probably thousands of dollars to try to do this. And so, where did they buy this stuff? How was it not discovered when they were going and buying drones? Where did they get the drones from?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many questions that I'm sure a lot of people are going, oh, I never thought of that, or they're saying, I don't care how it was done.
So,
but I think, we like to know that stuff.
We would. If you remember in November of last year at Fort Campbell, there were 4 drones that were stolen at Fort Campbell, and there were 2 suspects. They were both arrested and charged. I've never heard where the drones went, but these were not drones that carried weapons. They were for surveillance. They were equipped with cameras. But if they got their hands on a drone like that, I guess they would have to know how to operate it. But could they also equip it with some type of explosive? Would that be the kind of thing that they could change how it operates and move a giant bomb or whatever to cause this attack?
Well, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, drones that have cameras or the GPS capability, which so many of them do, how dedicated were these drones? I mean, what was their, what level of professionalism were they at?
Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't a toy. I don't think that the toy drones are worth much. You see most of them come to the ground fairly quickly. But, it's all done remote. So who was in control of those drones? And did they, in fact, have lessons on how to fly those drones. So there's so many questions like that I don't think a lot of people are thinking of, and the FBI certainly hasn't been talking about any of that. But those are certainly questions that I hope somewhere down the line come out some sort of answers. But it just does make you think of a bigger connection and where that connection is and who the connection is. At least that's my mind. But, my mind goes right to the jihad part of it. But
well, that's your experience.
Rolling their eyes,
yes. All right.
But
stand by for a minute because we have more questions for you coming up in just a couple of moments here. Right now, 10:50, we're going to get an update on what's coming up in the news, and we will return with more and Kathy Hinners coming up right after that here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis from Super Talk 99.7 WTN and Nationals Morning News. I'm here with Chris from USS, United Structural Systems. He's checking out my basement, my foundation, my crawl space to see if there's anything wrong. Fingers crossed. All right, so there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is we found some cracks in my basement wall. The good news, I've got Chris here who's going to walk me through the next steps.
Yes, so unfortunately, your house has been subject to the pressure of the dirt. The hydrostatic pressure, heavy dirt pushes on foundation walls, and you've got a little bit of what we call bowing. So that wall is pushed in a little bit. We have a lifetime warranty solution for that. So we install, usually in a day or two, this can be done in most situations. We install carbon fiber straps, which keep the wall from moving inward at any point in the future. It's a lifetime warranty for anybody that ever owns this house. So it's a quick and routine thing that we do, but it yields some long-lasting benefits.
It's a great selling point if you want to sell your house.
Absolutely. Good thing about our warranties is they're not only transferable, like the contract says, they're automatically transferred when you sell your house. So you don't have to sign any paperwork or even send us an email saying that you sold your house. Warranty would transfer to the next owner.
So in Chicago, you had a massive ICE raid. They were pinned in by a bunch of locals and some gang members as well. ICE was. And these guys, these gang members, they had weapons, high-powered weapons. And these ICE agents, they were blocked in by hundreds of these locals. And there's a guy on the roof pointing something at them as well. And so ICE ended up, to get out of this, because they're calling for backup and the whole thing, they ended up releasing some tear gas, and everybody starts freaking out because there is, in Chicago, this is so insane, a temporary restraining order that does not allow tear gas to be released unless the ICE agents face an imminent threat or they give 2 prior warnings. Now, first of all, I don't believe that ICE would use tear gas unless it was an imminent threat. But the point is that they're making it harder and harder for ICE to do their job. So, of course, Gregory Bavino, and if you don't know who Bavino is, he is the head of this particular mission, right, in Chicago. And he is being accused of violating the restraining order that does not allow ICE to use tear gas unless agents face an imminent threat or they're given 2 prior warnings. So he hauls in, I love this, Bovino hauls in the tape that if you're watching on YouTube TV, Super Talk TV, you can see they bring in drone footage. They bring in these people making threats against the ICE agents and so forth. And so I love that he does bring in the receipts. And you know what? If that's what these judges are going to do, and if that's what the liberals are going to do, and if that's what these illegal alien gang members are going to do when we come into, their neighborhoods to find the gangbanger illegal aliens, we are going to go even harder. You're going to mess with us? We're going to mess with you harder. I love, love, love that attitude from Bavino.
All right, drivers in Robertson County, you've got a 13-minute delay if you're westbound 24 due to a crash right before Maxey Road. Here in Nashville, we got an injury crash west end at Bowling Avenue, also 4th and Lafayette. And the Gilgo Beach serial killer learns his fate. Details coming up at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, 10:56 here. That's Ken. He'll be up at the top of the hour. And we have been discussing this event, the UFC event, and the plot to crash it with drones and use snipers to kill people. Sounds like a video game, honestly. We are learning. So Kathy Hinters is joining us here. Kathy is former police officer from Albany, New York, also worked with Homeland Security. And she's got a background in these types of things that are connected, these events that are connected to Islamic terror. Would you say that I classified that well, Kathy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is some information here on, let's see, this is on an NBC local television station, had a little bit more information, which I thought was really interesting. He said, but it says that before his arrest, court documents show the Propper's parents had, this is that Tyson Propper, the guy whose mom called police on him. They had started worrying about his behavior. They worried about him making anti-Semitic social media posts, spending $3,000 of his graduation money on weapons and ammunition. So he had already purchased some things that made them a little antsy. That part about his behavior, making anti-Semitic social posts on social media posts, and the link to him saying that, or maybe it came from the Signal chats, I'm not really sure, saying that they were going to target people who were taking money from pro-Israel lobbying firms. And among them, of course, was our Senator Marsha Blackburn. That's the reason they wanted to kill her, was because she was taking pro-Israel money. if we're linking, their behavior is set off by these anti-Semitic actions, what does that say about I think if I'm drawing a line to something, I'm drawing a line to Islamic terror. I mean, it's their goal to wipe out Israel and all things Israel. I mean, doesn't it link it to some type of Islamic terror?
Yeah, that was one of the things that did trigger me when they talked about AIPAC and then the anti-Semitism, which we know is rampant among, the Muslim community, pretty much the Muslim community. First of all, I want to say Mom was an absolute hero.
Yeah.
To be able to do that against your own son is valuable, invaluable. But I wish they would have done it when he was amassing weapons. But they did it in time, which was great. But everything to me certainly sounds like a jihadi type ideology. But, again, they're proving it's more the anti-government, which then I will openly blame the left and their rhetoric. When you've got AOC and Bernie Sanders and all the socialists and /communists that are being elected into, our government, which is very dangerous.
And it's happening in D.C. right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so, there's that connection as well. But to be able to have this many young people hating the government enough, and then what I really thought was kind of interesting.
I'm gonna put you on hold for that one. I want to hear what you have to say about that, but we have to get to news, and then I'm gonna hold you over if you have some time, because there is another really disturbing story that I think you can add some context to. We'll deal with that story coming up here right after the news with Ken Weaver here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Eleven o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Tropical Storm Arthur has formed in the Gulf. Now you got multiple states under warnings and watches. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. The Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann is sentenced to multiple life terms without the possibility of parole today. Here's Aaron Katersky.
Rex Heuermann, the suburban dad who worked as an architect in the city, lived a double life, admitting he murdered 8 young women and buried their bodies, some dismembered and wrapped in burlap. He strangled the women he had hired as escorts and tormented their loved ones.
President Trump renewing his push for Congress to pass the voter ID measure known as the Save America Act. He's at the G7 summit.
I'm not going to sign FISA unless it's done.
Yeah, that's FISA Section 702, which provides a key intelligence tool. He made those comments today, among other leaders. As for the agreement reached with Iran, Trump seems to indicate the text that was signed digitally on Sunday may not actually be the final text.
If I don't like it, if they don't behave, we'll go right back to dropping bombs right smack in the middle of their head.
Karen Travers.
They did put out a statement overnight supporting this agreement, calling it a breakthrough, but it is not even clear if all of the G7 leaders have actually seen copy of this agreement. We know lawmakers back in Washington have not, and they are clamoring for this agreement and briefings from the White House on what is included.
So Americans continue to defy economists' expectations. At least in May, cash registers were ringing loudly. Retail sales jumping 0.9% last month, more than double the gain of the previous month. Analysts say, though, that much of the increase came as a result of higher gasoline prices, which drove up receipts at service stations. Takeout food and energy and retail sales rose by 0.7%. And there's positive news about the health of the youngest Americans. ABC's Jim Ryan says U.S. infant mortality has fallen to its lowest rate ever.
Preliminary data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention finds that 5.4 babies per 1,000 born in 2025 didn't make it to their first birthday. As tragic as it is, it's the lowest rate in U.S. history. The decline was only fractions of a percentage point below the 2024 figure, but in hard numbers represented hundreds of lives.
Fans of one of the World Cup teams are having a great time in a U.S. host city. ABC's Brian Clark tells us.
Scotland fans have taken over Boston for the World Cup, and some of them told affiliate WCVB.
I don't think Boston realized what was coming to it.
It's been good for local businesses, but not for beer supplies. Sam Adams' parent company says its Boston tap room ran out of its signature Boston Lager over the weekend after sales were 4 times higher than usual. Company says it resorted to an emergency delivery and added extra deliveries throughout this week. Brian Clark, ABC News.
That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey there, it's 11:06 here on your Wednesday, and I'm Joan Jones sitting in for Chris Hand, and he will return on Monday. Right now, President Trump is speaking about the Iran agreement at the G7 summit. The summit is just now wrapped up, and he said he's going to talk to the American public. Let's listen to see if he says anything that's worth taking note of here. Go ahead. You can pull that up. There you go. All right. Well, I'd been hoping to hear more about the agreement itself. He's talking about things that have already happened and are past. I did want to take note that oil right now is trading. This is the West Texas Intermediate crude trading at $76.60 right now. That's the lowest I've seen it in a long time. Brent crude is at $79.53. So we're under that $80 a barrel mark. That's pretty good. Checking out stocks. Stocks are on the plus side today. So things are good, at least economically, for the U.S. after this agreement with Iran. We'll have to keep our eye on it and see if there's any developments about it that we can announce, because we just don't know any of the details at this point. Okay, so back to our story about the UFC, the planned attack on the UFC event on Sunday at the White House, and our discussion here with Kathy Hinners, who is a former police officer and also had worked with Homeland Security and has a little knowledge, a thing or two about what these events are. And Kathy, I wanted to ask you a question. Oh, you were in the middle of a thought. And I don't want to take that away from you. What was it that you were about to say that you had an even bigger interest in?
Well, I thought it was interesting that a former FBI agent was on the news this morning, and he was going on about how simplistic the plan was. And my whole thought was, no, I think the logistics alone were very detailed. They had to do some surveillance. They had to know the details of how the crowd would run and things like that. So I just don't agree with some of the things that are coming out about it being a simple plan. I think there was a lot more to it with a lot more people involved.
Yeah, clearly. There was also, along with that plan to attack people at the event itself, there was a second attack, like a second wave within this attack. And that was that once everybody started running, these guys would rush the gates of the White House. I mean, was that an attempt to go after the people? They would switch to using long guns, I think they said, and go after other people. What was the point of rushing the gates? Would they also try to take the White House?
I think so. I think they also, obviously President Trump was he was a target as well, as so was the vice president. So their thought, obviously they had grandiose ideas that they could do that, because there would have been one heck of a battle between, the Secret Service, police, and the Secret Service themselves. You just aren't going to get into the White House. But that being said, the distractions that they were going to cause would have been huge. And so a lot of the resources that would have been at the White House, they wouldn't just leave their post, but certainly there was a distraction to get them away to maybe hundreds of people that were being shot and killed. So that's what I'm saying, though, the logistics of this, being able to plan one thing and figuring out how that would work and where people would go, and then how to pick them off, if you will, and then to do the White House. I mean, that's really kind of a big idea. But there was logistics and planning involved in that. And
I feel like this whole discussion about this Tyson Proper guy whose mother turned him in, he didn't seem, he's young, he didn't seem particularly smart. And I feel like that we're being set up to focus on him because we don't hear anything about the other guys. We're being set up to focus on him and make it seem like it was a simplistic plan. And it was it couldn't have done anything so terrible, even though we know that, it could well have done horrible damage and lots of deaths. And one of the other things that I think a lot about, and I thought about it for this event and also for the event, the White House press dinner.
Oh, the dinner, yeah.
Yeah, that there was the attack there. Is it a smart idea for so many of our leading politicians and cabinet members to all be in one place at one time?
No. I was very surprised at the dinner that so much of the cabinet, well, I think pretty much all the cabinet was there.
Yeah.
But, this president believes in, being free and having all his, people around him with him and attending these wonderful pro-American events and things.
Yeah.
And so, that's quite unlike past administrations. But no, I think it's a security nightmare. And it certainly is a nightmare if they start picking off our cabinet one by one. I don't think it's a smart idea. I'm not quite sure how President Trump has said something about, this is why we need a ballroom. I'm not sure. I understand how it fits for certain events, but, for stuff like that's coming up for the 250th anniversary, birthday. I don't see how that plays into it, but
well, I can tell you because there is an article. It's at the Independent out of the UK, and it says the ballroom is designed to defend against such attacks. Highly sophisticated drone port and sniper nests. The building would feature heavy steel drone-proof roof, missile-resistant columns, bullet, ballistic, and blast-proof glass windows, military-grade and hermetically sealed venting for air conditioning and heating. So any type of attack, I guess, the ballroom would essentially... But, you're not going to hold the UFC event inside the ballroom. So I'm not sure I understand.
No, but for other events, I mean, the cabinet should be free to attend things. So I think I never heard, the things that you just said. That's amazing how fortified that's going to be. And that's even more of a push to get it done, especially with, what's happening in our country now and across the globe. I think that's a great idea. And I think they should do it.
So there's another story that came out. So I want to ask you about two more stories, and we're going to have to kind of push quickly through these. But the FBI just this morning arrested an illegal alien flying a drone in restricted airspace near the FIFA World Cup Fest in Atlanta. FBI Director Kash Patel, quote, "Our teams all over the country continue working 24/7 with interagency partners protecting the games. This FBI will pursue and bring to justice any criminal actor who targets the events. In total, nearly 24 drones were seized."
Oh,
what your immediate reaction to that?
It just gets crazier. I mean, drones are readily available. So, illegals and legals alike have access to them.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a really tough summer, especially when, leading up to the July 4th. I think the law enforcement resources are really going to be stretched. I think that it's going to be such a hard thing to manage. But they're good at what they do. Law enforcement today is, FBI and all that. They've got their stuff together, especially now with this administration. They really are back to the basics and being able to do their jobs. But I give them credit because it's all over the country. There's going to be huge celebrations, and certainly we know there are cells throughout the country that are looking to do damage to Americans. So. Pray for all law enforcement across the country as we approach July 4th, because it certainly is a test.
Certainly is. Okay. So then there's another really disturbing story out of the UK. And I want to talk about this story, but it's disturbing. And it's one that if you've got kids around the radio right now, maybe you want to usher them out of the room, because this is pretty disturbing. It's a story about rape gangs in the UK. And it was blown. Now, it's something that's been talked about forever, but yesterday it was blown wide open with the release of a report from a British politician named Rupert Lowe. He was elected to Parliament in 2024, and he's the leader of this movement called Restore Britain. He wants his Britain back, and who could blame him? So the quick explainer here is that this report showed that this is unbelievable. 250,000 British girls had been raped, predominantly by Pakistani Muslim men operating in gangs across the UK for decades. The report exposes the systematic industrial scale targeting of vulnerable white British girls by these Muslim men. And the government covered it up. And that's the part of this report that is the most shocking thing. I have never heard of rape gangs until, this has been talked about in the past couple of years, but the scale of it is just unbelievable. And it's predominantly Pakistani Muslim men.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I just got that as we were going on. I just got that report. And so a quick, excuse me, a quick view of that. It is an institutional failure where where the government has allowed these gangs to operate without impunity because they are Muslim men, and the UK, though, is destroyed because of this. Now, one of the interesting things, the rate of arresting Muslims for crimes and the reporting of it is extremely low because of you would be accused of Islamophobia.
Right.
In the UK, Islamophobia is a crime. It's defined as anti-Muslim hostility. So you get arrested if you talk about, if you're anti-Muslim or anti-Islam. But some of the things that came out of that report are very interesting. The most current statistic from the UK Ministry of Justice was that 12% of the reported rapes by Muslim men, which equates to 676 Muslim men have been arrested and convicted of rape. But this is outrageous. I mean, I never heard of this either. But also the UK grooming gangs in Islam identifies that, and I know here we go again, but 8 aspects of Islam influence Muslims as to how they are to emulate, and not just emulate, but imitate the Prophet Muhammad. It's called diminitude, and that is the treatment of non-Muslims according to Islamic law. Women are nothing in Islam.
Right.
Women are so far below what the bar is for women in every other country. They're treated as second-class citizens, and that's not coming from me. That's coming from the Quran and the Hadiths and the Sirahs. So those are the documents clearly, and it's clearly stated in different Quran surahs about, women are treated less. And so until we can get a handle on that, this is going to continue. And then what I also find very interesting is if a woman is raped under an Islamic law, rape can only be proven if the rapist confesses or if there are 4 male witnesses. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And then if a woman is raped but is married, it's considered adultery and she can be stoned. These are things that are actually taking place in the UK. And guess what? We're not far behind with that type of ideology that is coming to our country. We're not seeing it necessarily in rapes. But an interesting thing is law enforcement does not categorize crimes by religions. So we might not ever know that Muslim men are committing crimes in this country because they don't categorize it.
Yes.
So, this is something that needs to be fixed. There for a while we had the female mutilation stuff going on, and some doctors actually were arrested for doing that. That is against the law in this country.
That was in Michigan or?
Yeah, it was in Michigan.
Yeah.
And so, if people think that this can't happen here, I'd like people to look at what's happening or happened in Hamtramck, Michigan, where the entire local government is Muslim. And they are.
It's funny you mentioned that. We played that audio yesterday right here. I was so that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And here's how they operated in the UK. It says this. Now, this is sort of just a quick summary of that report that you're reading now. It says girls as young as 11 years old were befriended by young Muslim men who treated them like adults. They would supply them alcohol, drugs, cigarettes. They were collected in taxis right at the gates of their schools, in care homes, which means I would assume that they were didn't have families, essentially. They were taken care of in homes. They would be right on the streets. They would be taken to houses, flats, restaurants, and hotels, and then raped repeatedly by groups of men, passed between perpetrators, tortured, filmed, and told they were white trash or kafar, who deserved punishment. Many became pregnant while they were still children, and some were trafficked over to the Middle East for Islamic marriage. Mm-hmm. That's an insane, the thought that could happen in the UK, in Britain, and nothing is being done about it?
No, and the government and education and, all these government institutions are the cause of that. They've never put a stop to it because of the fear of Islamophobia, the fear of Islam. And so that's the difference, though. We don't have that here. But over there, it's just tearing them up. It's just eating them up. They have the enclaves. There was actually one report about a woman that had been raped by 700 different men, and all of Pakistani descent. I don't know what the correlation is. I know that Pakistan, they follow Sharia law. But most Muslims do. But I thought, 700 men, and this woman was over a very long period of time that she was raped. So, where is the justice in the UK for this? If you're a young woman and you go into a Sharia-compliant neighborhood, you're open to any crime happening against you. They haven't been as outward in those communities. But they will, if you have a cross on, they will, demand you take the cross off.
Oh, yeah.
Take the cross off of you. And these are things that are under Islamic law. And so, I don't know why we're arrogant in this country to think, we have a constitution and that won't happen here. Well, I can tell you that the Constitution is completely antithetical to their way of life. And so mass in numbers, this is how they're winning elections here, because the numbers of Muslims in the community. So, it's really sad. But if you look at what's happening, especially to young women in the UK, it's like, why would you stay there? Why would you? But it's happening all across Europe, Germany, France. They're all having this problem.
So there's also something that I saw recently. It was a video of an imam who was going into gas stations that are owned by Muslim men, or stores that are owned by Muslim men, and he would go around and say, "You better stop selling alcohol because that's not allowed in the Islam faith. Take all the no bacon products in this store because that's not allowed by the Muslim faith." So I get the feeling like that's the beginnings. That's the small things that they do in order to lay down the bigger work to bring that Sharia law into our United States.
Yeah, that's exactly the way it is. And when you look at and we've talked about this before, you look at the public schools in Nashville that are allowing the Islamists to basically rule how they do things. But, Jews don't eat pork. Muslims don't eat pork, but you're not going to either under Islamic law.
Right.
So this is the very small steps that they take, small incremental things that we don't really pay attention to, but over time are going to lead up to problems. Hamtramck is a perfect example. You have an entire government that's Muslim. So Sharia law is implemented there. It used to be 70% Polish and Christian, and they've all left that area because who wants to live under Islamic law?
Yeah.
So, people better wake up, and I think people are waking up, but there's always those apologists that, well, it's a religion. Well, it's not really a religion. Religion's a very, very small part of Islam.
Yes.
It's a, military way of life. And going back to the 6-year-olds and the 11-year-olds that are being raped, Muhammad married a 6-year-old, didn't kind of do the marriage thing until she was 9.
Yeah.
But
that was nice of him to wait till she was 9.
Yeah. And they don't condemn that. The prophet is someone that they have to imitate in order to be a good Muslim.
Yes.
So they don't condemn that. It's sick. It's sick, but this is what we're seeing.
Well, you know what, Kathy, we appreciate that you are out there calling attention to it. And keeping us all informed. I appreciate that that is being paid attention to, at least in some places, and we need to make it more. And it's good to have you here to report on it for us. And we super appreciate you being here with us and taking a few moments here to talk about these things. Kathy Hinners, tell people how they can find you on the internet.
DailyRollCall.com.
DailyRollCall.com. All right. Kathy Hinners, so appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Right now, 11:26. We're super late on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Tropical storm 11:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Drivers, we got stuff in the way. Got a crash reported in Lebanon. That's going to be 40 eastbound right there at exit 238. Goodlettsville, you've got dirt in the road. Left lane blocked. And that is going to be at Vietnam Veterans Boulevard. And then in Dixon County, got some road work. Off-ramp partially blocked. 840 westbound off-ramp to go westbound on 40. Cedar Hill in Robertson County, you got a crash causing a 7-minute delay, 24 westbound before Maxey Road. Tropical Storm Arthur has formed off the Gulf Coast, but Jim Ryan says the first named storm of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season was deadly before it even got its name.
On Monday, the body of a woman whose car had been swept into a flooded creek was found still inside the vehicle. About 250 miles to the east, a day later, several teenagers were playing near a retention pond when one of them went into the water and didn't resurface. Using sonar equipment, searchers later found the body of that 15-year-old.
President Trump at the G7 summit seems to indicate the deal with Iran, digitally signed on Sunday for a 2-month ceasefire, is not the final text supposed to be signed on Friday.
If I don't like it, if they don't behave, we'll go right back to dropping bombs right smack in the middle of their head.
So this agreement was scheduled for a signing on Friday in Geneva. Other nations at the summit there have released a statement in support of the agreement, but details of this agreement are still largely unknown. Here's Rachel Scott.
Still unclear what kind of financial reward Iran has been promised. The Wall Street Journal reports the agreement allows Iran to start selling oil immediately. Trump's former ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, saying if this is true, Iran wins.
Well, there are other parts that say the only things that Iran will get will come from complete Iran cooperation. Anyway, President Trump telling Congress they better pass that Save America Act or else.
I'm not going to sign FISA unless it's done.
And the Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann reportedly sentenced to prison for the rest of his life. The Long Island architect pleading guilty to murdering 7 women, admitted to an 8th. A judge handed down multiple life sentences, calling Heuermann a coward as victims' families spoke in court. Aaron Kotursky says the case ends a years-long investigation into one of New York's most notorious murder mysteries.
He was first identified as a suspect in 2022 thanks to his distinctive vehicle, and he was arrested the next year after his DNA was retrieved from pizza crust in the trash outside his office. Since then, the sheriff here told us Heuermann has been reading books about other murders and has corresponded with at least one other killer.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
7:37 with Joan Jones sitting in for Chris Hand. Last couple of minutes here of the show. Had a lot of fun today. I wouldn't call it fun. Okay, so it was very informative today, and just good to have really good, knowledgeable people on the air like Kathy Hinters. That was terrific. I did get a text message from our friend Sally that I thought was so insightful about this issue. He said, Sally is a he. It's going to happen in America also. The Constitution is a double-edged sword. Not only does it give us our freedoms and rights, it gives our enemies freedoms and rights. And they've learned how to manipulate the populace. They will vote themselves into power, and they won't have to fire a single shot. It's so true, and it's so frightening. He said it's also why we need to pass laws, why we can to prevent foreign-born citizens from occupying any political position, including dog catcher. And as you know, at this moment, that the city of Hamtramck with the entire Muslim Council, there's a good reason it's on full display right there. All right, so let's get to some other news of the day, and then we're going to end on at least some positive notes, because we can't walk away from this show today on a bad note. But I did want to bring this story to you. There was a cross-burning incident that took place in Chicago. And of course, Chicago, everybody blamed it on white supremacists, of course, right? So it was actually a guy who's Asian American, and he's a leftist anti-Trump protester. And this is the way he decided he was going to protest President Trump, by burning a cross in the middle of a park. Apparently, he didn't understand what burning a cross meant. Here he is talking to a reporter.
I don't want to wait until he may or may not get impeached. I want him gone right now.
On that video, are you threatening him?
No.
You say that you think that he should be brought to an end.
I said he deserves to stand trial to the American people. Some paraphrase, I guess. But
I think you used the word end.
That's what I mean by end. I mean, by end, I don't mean like a civil war. If that is the imagery that you're trying to imagine.
Lou says he built this cross after carrying wooden slats from his near West Side apartment to Grant Park last Tuesday afternoon. He showed the red ball cap that he put on the top beam and used lighter fluid and toilet paper to get it all going.
I put a red hat to signify the MAGA hat, the Make America Great Again hat. So that was... yeah, that's what I tied on top.
But that's not visible in the one video that was taken by a motorist.
Lou says he was protesting what he calls MAGA Christian nationalist supporters and the Trump administration ruling class.
He's just scamming people. We're just scamming out of money, right? And I think that's a great reflection of how this country works right now.
Yeah, so go ahead and just burn a cross in the middle of a park. That'll take care of everything. So then... after that, it was revealed that this Asian American guy decided that he was going to be the one to burn a cross. They went to the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, and asked him about it. Amazingly, this was his response. Now, you just heard this kid say that he did it because he hates MAGA so much, and he hates President Trump, and he doesn't want to wait until he gets impeached. He wants to put out symbols of how much he hates him now. Here's Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago.
Well, look, I can't speak to his lack of or understanding of the gravity of what he's alleged of having done. And, again, it's a painful reminder of how hatred towards Black Americans still permeates, in our society.
No, I think he said that he hated President Trump, and he hates Christian nationalists, and he hates white people. I don't think I heard Black Americans at all in that. That's that guy, Brandon Johnson, he's just insane. All right, so we'll go on beyond that one because there's so many other cool things to get to today. There was a story. There's a trend that you should know about. It's new on TikTok. It's called, you're not going to believe this, but it's called the Austin Bop. You want to see what the Austin Bop is all about? I don't know if I can keep the... You know what? Here you go. Mason, just be aware that there may be some bad words that come out of this. I'm going to take it down immediately if I can, if there's anything that comes up out of it. But it's a new trend on TikTok. It's called the Austin Bop, where the dancers get to act out Austin Metcalf getting stabbed to death. They decided to do this on Spotify. Actually, Spotify and Apple Music carry the song just so, you can also dance along to it. But here's how it goes for these kids that are taking on this new TikTok challenge.
So look, bro, I feel like we should propose a new challenge in honor of the Carmelo and Austin Metcalf case going the way it did. Because as y'all know, these people mimic everything we do. So let's see if they mimic this too. I call this one Do the Austin Challenge. What you do, you come outside and you stand in the sun for 3-4 hours with no sunblock, right? And then you plant your feet in the grass, bare feet. You grab your throat and you fall to the ground. And then you start gasping for air and shaking.
He's mimicking how Austin Metcalf looked as he was dying.
Like that.
Yeah, so other ones, other people who take this Austin challenge, the Austin Bop challenge, they actually decide that they are going to dance to the music of this Austin Bop. And while they're doing it, they're stabbing themselves in the chest. It's an amazing thing. And Spotify and Apple Music actually keep this music on their platform. What a disgusting thing to do. It's just more of the stuff that divides our communities. Crazy stuff. There is a story today about, let's go to the next one here. I don't know which one I want to do first. The city of Annapolis, Maryland. Here you go. We'll do this one. This is where I used to live. I lived in Annapolis, Maryland. I absolutely loved it. It's one of the most beautiful places ever, right on the Chesapeake Bay. Great places to eat. You can go out on all the rivers that lead into the bay. There's great boating, sailboats everywhere. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous place to live. The city of Annapolis, Maryland just put out an emergency preparedness guide for LGBTQ people. They claim that LGBTQ people are more likely to be affected by a natural disaster. So if the hurricane comes, it's going to go right to your house. If you're LGBTQ, why not make sure that all the residents are prepared for a disaster? It's the Democrat-appointed Kevin Simmons is the director of this, and I didn't even want to show it to you on the Super Talk TV because it's awful. That's the city that I used to live in, and it's such a nice place. I don't understand how it got to that point. Good stories. Okay, let's switch to the good stories because we only have a couple minutes left. So we have Dana White. You know him as the CEO of the UFC. What is it? The Ultimate Fighting Club? It's not Ultimate Fighting Club. I'm not sure what it stands for. But, he's the guy that brought the event to the White House on Sunday. He might just have converted to Christianity. Why do I say that? Because he just did this podcast, and he talked about how the storms that were barreling down on the White House on Sunday, actually, it's like the Moses scene where he parts the sea, the Red Sea. He says that as these storms were barreling down on Washington, D.C., God parted the sky and he made it stop raining and everything was able to go on as scheduled. Here he is talking about this on this podcast. Here you go.
Like the Channel 7 meteorologist. Right. We have like the military, right? We got like the best guys in the world. We're absolutely positively getting hit. It's going to hit. So we got a team. We're ready. When it hits, we're going to get out there and clean everything up as best we can. And then we're going to go on at 9:00. Okay.
Right.
I think it was 9:00, between 9 and 9:30. Okay.
Right.
We're going to go after the rain. The storm comes and splits at the White House and goes around the White House in the ellipse.
Like divine intervention.
Well, the president believes that to his core, that, it was divine intervention.
I saw the radar images, Dana, and right, it's like a big ass storm, and then it's like gone, and then it's back again.
So my head of production, Craig Borsari, who is the absolute best in the business, and a genius and a workhorse, he lost 10 pounds this week.
I don't know why that was in there, but when you pair that with, and there's that picture right there, if you're watching on Super Talk TV, it's the picture of the Washington Monument, and there's the rainbow, and then the strike of lightning right there with it, and you know that the storm just parted and went around Washington D.C. instead of raining on the parade there. And to know that a plot to kill everyone in Washington, D.C. for that event was broken up at the last minute. I mean, honestly, do you think that there is no divine intervention? That is a serious, like, wake-up call, I think, for all the people in Washington, D.C. It's crazy. That was it was very cool. I loved that. Let's get to another good stuff. Oh, here you go. This is one that I just love. And, I think Brian played this earlier today, which is just fine. We'll forgive him for playing what we were going to play first. Yeah, this is it. So that there are all these people that are in this country from around the world, and they're posting things on the internet about how wonderful the United States is and the cool things that they're finding here. This guy is in a Boston bar, and turns out that there's all these people from Scotland, the soccer fans from Scotland, and they've descended on Boston, and they drank all the beer. And Boston, amazingly, is out of beer.
There was no beer. The Scots fans just drunk the place dry, and all they had was like Bud Light.
If your favorite beer is missing from a tap,
we've never seen anything like it.
There's a decent chance Scotland had something to do with it. Sam Adams downtown ran out of their signature Boston lager over the weekend and needed an emergency delivery to keep up with World Cup fans. And they're not the only ones running dry.
Pretty much everything. We ran out of everything. Tennant's being number one.
White Bull Tavern may have run out of Scotland's iconic Tennant's beer, but that didn't stop the party.
The fans have been unbelievable. They're great. They're fun. They're drinking, partying, having a great time.
So you have a drinking kilt for obvious reasons, because it might get some spillage on it. You have a dress kilt, so you always have two kilts.
The Dubliner has also been hopping.
And we had our biggest week ever last week.
And it's the one place Scots can still find their Tennant's lager.
Managed to plan ahead and get an extra delivery last Saturday, and I was told yesterday the distributor has ran out also. He's getting his today, and the rest of the city's getting theirs tomorrow.
Yeah, that guy had a leg up on the competition because he had enough beer, which is amazing. So, Ken Weaver, I think that when you run out of beer in one bar, you just go to the next one. Yeah. I mean, obviously, right?
Yeah, well, and what you do is you hoard beer leading up to big events like this.
I think that's a smart plan. I liked how in the beginning that guy said the only thing you could find was Bud Light. Like, I'm not drinking that stuff. Oh, yeah. Good stuff. So the Scotlanders will all have to maybe, I don't know, head down to Tennessee and get some beer.
Nope.
No, you don't want them
I
here?
want all I want.
Yes.
So you guys stay over there in Boston.
Besides that, they'll jam up the roads. We don't need any more of that.
We don't need any more of that.
Absolutely not. All right, back with more good news stories, hopefully, to come here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 11:51.
I love this. Morgan Wallen has now decided to not submit his album, I'm the Problem, for consideration at the Grammys, which I think is a really, really smart move. You know why? Because last year, Beyonce won Album of the Year at the Grammys, which was absolute bullshit. Well played, Morgan. Well played.
I think that's our music.
That's it?
Yeah. It's 11:56. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's Joan here and Chad just joining the party.
Did you fix it?
I fixed it.
There's a lot
I
of
fixed
issues.
it just for you. Just for you.
Yeah, God, the mouse has a lot of problems at times.
Yeah.
It doesn't mouse the way it should.
It does
and then
not.
It disappears.
Yeah, I love that feature. Yeah, when the cursor goes away and you're trying to figure out where your cursor is.
And I got to play something. You're not playing anything now. Yeah. Start riffing.
Yeah. Did you see my picture of the roach?
No.
Oh, you didn't see this?
No.
All right, I'm going to show you. I showed everybody else earlier today, but I'll show you right now. And I don't have enough time to.
Is it a cumulus roach?
Yeah. In the ladies' room.
Look at that.
He's sleeping so sweet.
He is.
Up on his back and everything.
Look at him.
Yeah, he's a back sleeper.
Oh, he's trying to get inside his make sure he doesn't have a camera.
Yeah. You got something there.
What about in today's world? You know what? Somebody can make one of those. I'm sure they probably already have 1,000 of them.
Yeah, I bet they do. All right, so there's something I just read. Tell me what you think about this. The optimal thermostat setting.
Yes.
If you want to save money, if you want to have your thermostat set at a comfortable place that's not going to ding you on the other side, what do you think it is?
They'd probably say probably 82?
No. Okay. No.
78?
78. Department of Energy recommends that you keep your thermostat at 78. There's not a chance.
No.
No.
Like if you're coming from 100 degrees where you've been out all day and you walk into 78, you're like, this is okay.
That feels good for about a minute.
But eventually, and to sleep, the colder the room is, the better your sleep is going to be.
I think you're right. I think you're right about that.
So I'm not keeping. Look, if I leave the house, I don't care if it gets up to 75 or 80 because I'm not there.
While you're away at work, turn it up to around 85 to 88 degrees.
No chance.
No. All right. So now, Mason, I know that you live with a bunch of people. Do you guys pay your own utilities?
Yes, we do.
You do. So when you guys leave your house, what do you keep it at?
I keep it around 70, 72.
When you're
and then
gone?
when we're there, it's around 68.
Wow. You guys keep it cold.
Yeah, we keep it chilly because we went 3 months this year without AC. And so now that we have it back, we are enjoying every little bit of it.
I guess you are.
What was your bill like?
Keeping it 85, with it being 85 outside, doesn't sound as fun as you might think.
What was your bill like?
It's not too bad. I mean, there's 5 of us. We're paying about, I think, 110 each. So
What was it like when you didn't have AC?
Yeah.
Was it way down?
It was down because we turned everything off, so that dropped it down to, without the AC, we were down closer to 300.
Wow.
That's not bad.
But still.
I think that's terrible.
I'll spend the extra Give me the AC. And I can't sleep if it's hot.
No. I'm with you.
What's the first thing we all do when we go to a hotel and we're going to go sleep? We turn it down to the lowest it can go and climb underneath the covers.
Yeah, because somebody else is paying the bill.
Somebody else is paying
That's
for
right.
it. Exactly.
All right. What do you have coming up?
No, we're going to talk World Cup. We're going to talk probably some Iran stuff. It's White Woman Wednesday. White liberal women freaking out. Got some funny stuff.
Love that.
One Hit Wonder Wednesday. We'll see who wins the belt.
Oh, yeah. You guys have that funny belt.
We have the funny belts.
Yeah.
Will we win it, Ken and I, or will Belle win it again? We will discuss.
I see.
That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Big Wednesday.
It is a big Wednesday.
All right.
Getting over the hump.
All right. Let's go. 12 o'clock here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.